China Acosta, also known as Chinese actress and independent filmmaker. Today we'll be doing a film reaction to the wonderfully classic film CROOKLYN, a Spike Lee joint. And according to Libya Pugh, her research today is this year is the 30-year anniversary of CROOKLYN. It is principally written by Jawah, his sister, Spike Lee, and his brother Sink. And so I'm going to look through IMDb if you all want IMDb open. I usually read the summary during my film reaction. So I'll read that and then we'll get started. Spike Lee's vibrant, semi-autobiographical portrait of a school teacher, her stubborn jazz musician husband, and their 5 kids living in Brooklyn in 1973. The principal cast would be Alfred Woodard, the great artist that is Alfred Woodard, the great artist that is Delroy Lindo, the great artist that is David Patrick Kelly, the great artist that is Zelda Harris, Carlton Williams, Sharif, Tashay Washington, Chris Knowings, and countless Isaiah Washington, countless other talented cast and crew. Please introduce yourself, ladies, and we get this show on the road. Let's go.
So I guess you go ahead, Libya. You go ahead, Libya.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Libya Pugh, actor, writer, and educator. And it's
I think you cut out. I think we missed some of your credits. You said writer, educator.
Oh yeah, cut out. Okay, so writer, educator, and writer and actor. That's the other one. That's the actor, writer, and educator.
Too.
Oh right, and I sing too. You know, so many I can't keep up. We do so many things. We're Renaissance women.
Yes,
that's right.
Catherine.
Okay, well, my name is Catherine Nero, and I am a filmmaker. And I actually met Libya during the teaching days. Let's see, I am right now working on a short film that I'm just starting to send out for grants. And I have a blog called Cinema Nero that is on Substack.
Nice.
So, nice to meet you all.
Okay, so ladies, do we want to start from the TOP? Do we want to break it down by the ensemble cast, the individual cast, the cinematography, the writing, the direction, whatever component you all want to dive into? Let's do it.
Let's pick. Oh, go ahead. You go, because this is your first time, Catherine. You pick.
Oh, okay. No, I was just gonna say I always like to start out with, what do we like?
Okay. I love
what do we like about the film? I always like to start out with the positive.
Okay. Well, I actually wrote down, I typed in, I said, well, my observation is a love letter to their late mother, to Spike Lee and her sister and brother. I love the relationships. Principally, I love the quiet exchanges that are emotionally striking between the mother and the daughter, and the daughter and the father. One scene that tugs at my heart and made me cry, it makes me cry every time, is when their mother have transitioned and they're at the house, and the oldest brother and the little girl, he takes her hand and waterworks. Just like he lowers his defense, and in that moment they finally connect. And there's so many moments, but I just wanted to start out with that.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Many moments, so many moments. So I cried. I was in, so many moments. Catherine, you want
to? Sure. You know what I liked? I love the music. So it was a lot of nostalgia. I mean, took me back to, all the wonderful music. I loved seeing all the games, because now we're so on the computers and everything. So to see how we used to play, like, red light, green light, seeing the double Dutch rope, just, seeing all the, what we used to do before we had phones and everything. So that brought like a whole lot of memories back, especially like, they even had some of the, the hand stuff, the double Dutch rhymes, all that just came back for me. And I could, and I thought they really got it right in terms of how, the kids related to each other. Like, you always had the girls who are hating on the other girls, talking about, oh, she thinks she's cute. That was definitely, very, and I like the whole personality of the block. I think that was captured very well. It was a neighborhood, it had its flaws, but at the end of the day, you saw these interesting people, and it's still, even though you had the glue sniffers, it still felt like a safe space.
Yes.
Yeah.
It brought back a lot, like I said, a lot of wonderful memories. And I tell you, the music from the 70s was the best. I just gotta say that. But yeah, that was it for me.
Ditto everything that you said. In addition to, for me, growing up in the South, when I talked a little bit with China, I could relate a lot to her. And I saw that at 21, 30 years ago. And now 30 years later, I'm in a different space. And I lived in Brooklyn in Fort Greene near Bed-Stuy, and I was born in 1973. So I was just born when that era, that time. And so for me, it reminded me of what Brooklyn was when I first moved to Brooklyn as an adult. Like, oh my gosh, I did not pick up on that the first time, along with all the other things you were saying from my childhood, the games and everything. But I was like, that is New York. And there was this yearning, because I'm not there now. And it was this deep yearning and love for New York that I had never had before, because I had experienced New York, and I knew those streets and I knew those people. I was like, yes, that is New York. We are just family. We argue, we fuss, we do whatever, but my favorite, lots of great moments, but one of my favorite moments is when she comes back from going down south, and she takes what she learned, because this is my journey right now. She takes what she learned from the South and she incorporates it into her. She's learned and grown so much so that she has to take on that role of her mother when she passes. And then the other thing I felt a theme for me was so beautiful, watching Delroy Lindo take on this feminine aspect of a man. The nurturer. He was the one. There was a line, I remember there was a scene where they were like, one of them said, I'd rather have a daddy than a mama any day. Yeah. And that hurt me, because I was like, ooh, because she was doing so much, and she had to take on that masculine role, like, demanding, that positive energy, masculine energy. And Delroy was bringing home the ice cream and playing music and loving him in the tender moments, like you all said. He was, but he was more than just a good cop. He was like the tender cop. She had her tender moments. They both were tender. But you're right. They had to be good cop, bad cop, tender.
It switched.
Tender. But he never got, I don't remember a moment when he raised his voice. Anytime she raised her voice, he'd always say, listen to your mama now. Listen to your mama now, baby. And he would call them baby and honey, and she called a ladybug, but his terms of endearment were even more like this nurturing, feminine aspect. And I just so appreciate seeing that in him.
Yeah,
it was other issues, but that was beautiful.
And so interesting, because can we give an applause to Alfre Woodard, please?
Oh, yes.
Can we please?
Oh, yeah. God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh my God. Underrated. Always underrated.
Yes.
I mean, let's just take a moment for her magnificent performance, her tenderness, her patience, her fire, her provider mode, her sweet, when she laughed at her little boy, when the little boy was like, he didn't want, because the dog took the cake and then he split his cake. She thought that was fun. I like that there were moments that we saw her laughing, and I love how tender she was with Troy, with Ladybug. One of my I love the scene where she comes downstairs and he's playing his music, and she wants to rest in her femininity too. Olivia.
Right.
Maybe
that was a moment she tried.
I don't know. Maybe she want to read a book or something, but she can't because she's stressed about these bills. And that's fine being an artist, because we're all artists, but we all still have to keep a roof over our head. And she started out calm, and she became this erupting volcano as the scene unfolded. Not because she wanted to, But it's like, can you please pull your weight? I understand you did it in the past and wonderful, as you're supposed to.
Yeah.
But just let me know, Negro, if you're gonna bounce a check. Or just don't do
All
it
I'm
at all.
asking.
Don't surprise me. So
5, not 1.
5.
In 1 month. In 1 month.
1 month.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was reading up on this, and there's an article, I guess, from IndieWire that I found yesterday that's talking about the 30th anniversary, and they were saying that that scene in particular was improvised.
Really?
So yeah, they said they started them out on it, and so they had like you know, they just let Alfre and Delroy. I'm on first name basis with them.
Yeah.
Just let the people know.
All of us, we are artists.
And so, you know, the script writer, you know, was there. I mean, the
Continuity.
Continuity
Person.
Yes, yes,
Supervisor.
yes, script supervisor. They were there, and you know, just took notes, and then that's how they basically built that scene out. And I have to say that that was one of my favorite scenes, because I thought that that was just, you know, because Alfre stayed on point. You know, like, okay, but I need to know when you're writing out the checks, and I thought that was just such. I just thought that that scene, that was like my favorite scene, really.
Me too.
Yeah.
I had happened to have the pleasure of being in the room with Delroy for an audition 2 times. He called me back actually for the intensity of that man in that room. I just want to like bring it up because
Libya, can I interject real quick?
Yes.
I would have 20 of his babies like tomorrow. Proceed.
Well, there is somebody in this movie that I love too. Feel like that about that we haven't gotten to, but we'll get to him.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
Sorry, but he's so yummy. Go ahead, Libya. Sorry.
But yeah. I can imagine what that would have been like with Alfre and him, in the intensity of Spike being so clever to let 2 brilliant actors just go in, because he knew that they were going to be able to give more than he would be able to write, because he had brilliance in his hands, you know. And when you have that energy, and they, you know, they're close, I'm thinking, to the same age, Alfre and Delroy now. Okay. You know, then, and so there is this, you know, they've probably been in the business for a while. Who knows? You know, they know each other. So there's a chemistry when you know people and you've had opportunities to be with them on stages and films. So he just smart choice to let him go. And it was. I love that scene too. It's so many though. It's hard to choose. There's so many scenes. There was one scene at the end. It's so tender. And I had forgotten it was one of my favorites, when they go to the aunt's house in the South, and she's leaving. Well, I know we'll get to that, but when she's leaving, and the little girl and her friend, and she's walking along the car, it's just a moment. And all I could think of, and because I'm where I'm at too, I was like, she's leaving her there. She's leaving her there behind, and she's like, I want out of here too, but she had no choice. And she was suffocating. And I was like, my thought was, what happened to that? What happened to her? What became of her life? You know, and being here and looking at my friends who lived and grew and stayed here, and I left. And, you know, and same thing with you guys, you know, being from Chicago and having left and looking back and going back. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different way when you stay. You know, and that little girl stayed, and she had no choice, and you had to make the best of it. But it was like suburbia, and there's a different. I'm here, I'm in it, and it's like it's a contrast between the two.
Yeah, I would say that what I liked about the writing of many things, but what I liked about the characterization of that aunt, right? Who they're part of the 1% Black people, you know, upper income. I like that they didn't demonize her, because that would have been so fucking lazy.
Yeah.
You know? They didn't. Like, she was a full human being. She had feelings, and, you know, she was funny. I'm a little snobbish about certain things, the hair and all that, which was funny, which was very real.
Very real.
You have relatives within your family, you're like, girl, what you doing all those braids, honey? Press your hair. So I like the uncle. He was kind of like chill. He was kind of like the balance, like he was the buffer between the two, between the little girls and her. But I know I know we weren't supposed to really like her, but I liked her. There was a sweetness about her to me.
I liked her too. I liked her a lot too. And I even, you know, in her attachment to her dog, you know, Queenie, I felt for her, you know. I totally liked the aunt, and I could see that she was coming from a good place, you know. I liked her a lot.
Catherine and I talked a little bit about that moment with the dog, and Catherine, when I was prepared when it came up to laugh like I did when I saw it the first time at 21. But I have to agree with you, what you said. It hit differently this time, like a lot of things did, and that was one of them. I was like, at first I was like, and then because I knew it was happening,
Yeah.
coming, but I felt for her. I felt sorry for her, and I felt sorry for her, not just because of the dog, because of what that dog meant to her.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The attachment. Like, this woman obviously didn't have children, and she adopted those children, and she attached herself to them, and she attaches herself to those dolls, and she attaches herself to those tchotchkes that were in there, and all the little things and items. Those are important to her. And here where I'm at, that's important. Because that's like the ownership in something. And so when this time that dog was like her everything, I have my heart went out to Frances Foster, another talented, wonderfully talented, amazingly old school, back in the day, NEC, let's call her out too. Hands up, Frances Foster. So yeah, you know, beautiful, beautiful. She was. I saw her. I always liked the aunt though. Even when I watched it then I felt something, but this time even more compassion.
Yeah.
What's interesting though, you were talking about, you know, how this how it hits you differently 30 years later. Last time I'd seen it, I hadn't seen it since I saw it in the theater the first time.
Oh wow.
So it was fun to revisit it. You know, the first time around, I didn't understand the attachment to the dog, you know, because at that time I was, you know, still, you know, probably thinking, oh, I have kids. I couldn't understand how you could have that kind of child attachment to an animal. And then I had my own cat for 16 years, and that was my baby. And I was like, oh, I get it now. I totally, so it's interesting how, you know, 30 years later, things hit you differently, you know. So I was definitely, you know, all in my feelings when poor Queenie bit the dust.
Yeah, I would say too, I love how Spike Lee opened it up with all this movement, right? All this action in a movie. All this, like you said, with all the childhood outdoor games we played, and and then we even saw the adults playing chess, right? I love and how he concluded the movie with all the outdoor children playing, and I'm like, come on, Spike Lee, Spike Lee.
Yeah, Spike.
And Jawad and Sync, all three screenwriters, and it was principally, like I said, principally written by his sister. This is her story, and then they collaborated with her. So I want to make sure I recognize Jawad Lee. And and the scene where when her mother had transitioned, and she ran downstairs like, Mom, because she was still sleepwalking, and her father was bent over, and which was funny. And I loved the humor and the drama, like they merged so well. And then he was like, no, Mama is gone. And then it finally hit her, and then she vomited, and he came and he sat on her, and that nurture, bravo. It was so touching.
I'm glad you brought that up, that moment, because about the down the stairs, that moment was one of those moments that hit me differently. And I had to think about why it hit me. And it went back to another scene at the beginning when they were having that fight on the stairs. And it got violent and he left, right? So I'm talking about some dark shadows of this relationship now. And that triggered me because I have a moment in my life where a similar thing happened differently, but a stair moment of violence where I was a young girl. And it's something that stuck with me as a trauma moment with my parents. And I clocked it this time, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's violence. They're all over each other. Like, let's clock that. So then I watched it twice. I watched and I went back and started kind of like skimming through to see the patterns or if I missed anything. And then I was like, oh, remember when she wakes up before she goes downstairs, she's having a dream. She's thinking they're arguing, that there's violence going on.
Yes.
So to me, like, I didn't pick up on Spike indicating there was some form of violence in there that happened, and that he didn't shy away from that, and as a family dynamic, because it does happen. And her waking up and hearing that kind of gave me an insight of the parts that we didn't see with the family dynamic, what they went through to get where they are. Maybe there was some type of violence, you know what I mean? And because he's like, no, I'm here, I'm down here, I'm underneath the plumber. But she thought they were fighting. Like a trigger moment. That's what her memory was. When she remembers them, that's what she remembered. So it had to have been something that had happened frequently in her childhood with them, because we saw it at the piano when it started quiet and it elevated, but it feels like they had worked through some things and then he left. You know what I mean? Maybe they had got to a point in their relationship where he has to leave before it gets to that point, because it was getting to that point of violence when they were on those stairs and those kids were involved. Yeah. And that just struck me differently. Like, after everything I've gone through personally, it's just struck me differently. I didn't see that before. I wouldn't have seen that before.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Libya, for suggesting we do a film reaction to this particular film, because I forgot how much I love this film. I forgot how much, like, the mother is my late aunt. That, like, she was like no nonsense, but baby, when she was sweet as pie. You know, just the whole idea of going, because my cousins, they went down south every summer, and we didn't do that. And they were like my favorite cousins. Like, we wanted to go to their house all the time, and so in the summer we knew we wouldn't see them because they went down south, and we didn't. And so when we finally did go down south when I was 12, I was like kicking and fighting. I didn't want to go. I'm like, it's going to be boring. It's Mississippi. Like, what is there to do? And when I got down there, I was bored. However, my cousin was so funny that he made up for the boredom as far as activities. But it, like, remember she said to her, "What's that noise?" She's like, "You never heard crickets before?"
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. I'm like, it's just, I can't believe how much realism is in this movie. It's just, it's peppered throughout the, like,
it's so natural.
It's so natural.
Even that beginning scene, that cinematography too, that I had to go back and go, wait a minute, what period? I know this is not that time. I know it's not. Yeah. How far away is it? Because why I don't know what he used, you all the filmmakers, but it just echoed the time. Everything was dead on. The costumes, the shooting of it, it was just dead on.
Because Catherine, he did a different ratio when she went to visit her cousin, right? That was a different.
Yeah, it's like he used a different thing. I think it was an anamorphic lens or something. And that kind of jarred me. That jarred me.
Right.
Yeah, because and you know what? And if I may, I took that personally.
Oh, now we're talking about what we didn't like, right?
Well, I mean, that particular part, because I too. You know, I spent my summers in Mississippi as a child, you know, coming up, okay, and had a ball. So I was like, well, why are you portraying it like it's, you know, like a fun house or something, you know? So that part kind of struck me, you know, and it's like, even I could see you first come into that space and you have, you know, that reaction to it.
Yeah.
But you know, after you're there for like over a month and you're still seeing it like this, that kind of that rubbed me the wrong way.
What was his choice behind that? Does anybody know?
I don't know the film thing. This is your space here. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I've always noticed it. I'm like, that's really weird.
Yeah. Like, it's a strange world. You know,
it is a strange. I noticed it was a strange world, but I was so concentrated on looking at the houses and just the difference. One of the things I was trying to, there were differences, but there were similarities when it came to Black life when they went down south. Even though it was like, oh, the hair differences. When she said, when the aunt said, and there's food in the backyard, they went running. Food.
Yeah, fried chicken is fried chicken. Okay.
Fried chicken.
All
And they
right.
were eating at the table, and it was no different than when they were in Brooklyn at the table, and speaking of that, I don't know if we're shifting, but I would like to come back to, if you're not finished, to the food thing and what happened at the table with the eating of the food. That was another trigger for me to like Black culture and not leaving the table until you finish eating
Yes.
the black eyed peas. And I
Yes.
remember thinking, ooh.
Yeah.
And she said, well, everybody else likes it. The mama said, everybody else likes it. I was like, well, I would have said, well, I'm not everybody else. And I would have been,
Right.
because I talked back and I said, I'm not everybody else. Because that's what I would have thought.
Yes.
And he
Those
had
were
to
large
sit there until
portions too.
it was large.
Those are large portions. I mean, I
Mhm.
would have been like, yeesh,
And the kids were looking through the window at all the food they had when they were in Brooklyn as if they were rich. I found that interesting because
Yeah.
they considered them.
Right, Libya. And you know what? Thank you for bringing that scene up, because I remember they were like, look at that and look at that. Remember, Troy said that y'all are on welfare. Right. So I appreciate Spike Lee and his sister giving space to those who are on welfare. Remember her mother, she's like, go to the store and get this. She's like, I'm embarrassed. She's like, they're gonna make fun of me. She's like, the people making fun of you are on welfare themselves, basically. So it's like it's there to help you when you need it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But when you're a child, you're like, no, that's embarrassing.
Right.
So I and it's almost like the little boys was like, we want a family like them. We want that. Because maybe they were raised by a single mother, or and they didn't have the mother and father, and like they looked. I mean, if I saw I grew up with my mother and father. They divorced when I was 8 years old, going on 9. So I had that experience from childhood through 8 years old. So I know what that's like to like. It was only 3 of us though, but so I love that. We saw various socioeconomic backgrounds of Black people. We saw the 1%, which was the aunt in Virginia, and then we saw them who had their own brownstone and they owned the brownstone.
Yes.
And then we saw the kids who were on welfare and they probably were renting an apartment. So, and then the dude from Vietnam and his Puerto Rican
and the space struck me, because we live in New York and we seeing these beautiful brownstones, and we know those brownstones very well. And the largeness, they had an upstairs, they had all this space.
They had an upstairs and an upstairs. Yeah.
And an upstairs. And I've been in an upstairs in Harlem. So I've seen those in Harlem. And that's a lot of space, and we don't get that anymore. And part of their commenting on that could have also been connected to the space and how big it is, because everybody didn't have that. And it was a brownstone. And now those brownstones are how much? I don't even know. Like,
I know.
we can't even get one now.
What's interesting too is the fact that, and this probably hit me a lot differently too, watching it again, was the fact that they owned that brownstone. They
owned it because the lights went out.
Yeah. And then the people who are next door, the woman who was like, where's my rent? These are people who owned this property. And you have to kind of wonder, like, wow, that property is worth millions now. Do they still have it? I mean, did it happen? So that definitely was something that sat with me. Like, okay, these folks own this whole building.
Pre-gentrification. This was like this is right there on that cusp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when did you come to New York, Catherine? How long have you been?
96.
Oh,
wow.
96.
Okay.
So when I came here, they were just, I think like around 99 was when, the shells of brownstones were available. And so like, at that point I was like, oh, wish I had, now I wouldn't be able to afford a shell. But back then it was like, oh yeah, this is the time, jump in and get it if you want to get it. But it just, boom, took off.
What were you all thoughts about us being artists, about the conflict between the married couple? Like, what are your thoughts? Like when he said, do you want me to pick up a guitar and play a rock and roll? She's like, yes. That means you'll pay the bills. What are you all thoughts about his conflict and her and just her being the practical part of the equation and him being like the dreamer. And what are your thoughts? Do you feel like her gripe was legitimate? I think her grief was legitimate. And do you feel like he was legitimate too?
No, she was totally legitimate. Yeah, she was totally legitimate. And it's one thing to be a dreamer when you don't have kids. Okay, you can dream all you want to when you don't have kids. But it kind of takes me back to Hollywood Shuffle. Like, go to the post office and get a job, man. You can still play your music at night, and what you're playing, man.
Yeah.
There's good music in the 70s. I don't hear anything. Your music is not getting to me. So, yeah, I think she was totally. I was totally in her corner on that, and I thought that he. I just thought he was, I don't know what to think about him, but that kind of irked me, like, you got kids, man, go make some, go get a job. Yeah. Five.
Wow.
Yeah.
That hit me harder probably than anything as far as watching it again, because I saw it before, but this time it hit me because I had to write this all out.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very harsh critique on it, not on the film. The film was beautiful, but on the theme of it all.
Okay. Yes.
A Black woman gives up whatever, goes back to work to teach because you want to fulfill your dream of being an independent artist and make your own music. I understand that as an artist. I get it.
Yes.
Again, like you said, Catherine, but you have kids. So what she does is she sacrifices and goes to work. In addition, she is the one that's hands-on, as we see throughout the film with the kids, which is why she's frustrated, has anxiety. Then what happens? She tries to feed the kids. He brings home cake and ice cream, sugar. Good dad. And then she ends up sick with cancer, right? All that work, all that stress, all that sacrifice, she's the one that has to pay for it. She dies. She leaves behind 5 kids. Who takes over the family?
He does.
Huh?
He does.
No.
Girl.
No.
The girl.
Oh, I meant in terms of.
I mean, he does, but yes, he is the parent. But the last moment, this is what really struck me, is I told you that whole story to come back around to when she sent her to the store to get the food she was shopping. She was already preparing her because I feel like she already knew. And she did not want to go back down south because she did not want to be there because she'd already done that. So she took on the mother role at 10 years old. And it struck me because my niece just turned 10. Oh, she'll be 11, so she's 10. Yeah. And I thought about her. And if